Well, if I could, I surely would stand on the rock where Moses stood. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Well, Mary wore 3 links and chains. On every link was Jesus' name. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Well, one of these nights about 12 o'clock, this old world is gonna rock. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Well, Moses stood on the Red Sea shore, smote the water with a 2x4. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Brothers and sisters, don't you cry. There'll be good times by and by. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Oh, Mary, don't you weep, don't mourn. Pharaoh's army got drowned in. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
Hello, and welcome to WellSprings. My name is Beverly Fox. My pronouns are she and her, and I am truly honored to be serving as your worship leader today. Please know that when you gather at WellSprings, even when we gather virtually, you are welcome exactly as you are. Each week, when we gather, we light a chalice, not only as a symbol of our shared spiritual heritage, but of the living spark burning within each of us. Today, I have asked my ever-faithful companion, Buddy, and my new roommate, Curtis, to help me in lighting our chalice. Once they have done so, we will say the words on the screen together. And together we say, we light our chalice to celebrate the path lit before us, the warmth of kindness that shines from within us, and the radiance of wisdom that is shared between us and never goes out. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. So, it's been 6 weeks? 2 months? I don't know how long it's been since we've been living in this new crazy reality of ours. It's been a while, and I don't know about you guys, but it's been a struggle. I'm scared. I freely admit it. I look at the headlines, I see the news reports coming in, and I'm scared. I'm scared when I go to the grocery store with my scarf wrapped around my head 2 or 3 times. I'm scared when I talk to my parents who live in New York and are in their 70s. I'm scared when I see people out and about, interacting with each other without masks. And I don't like being scared, but I accept it. right? If I'm being self-compassionate with myself, I can't be anything other than accepting of that fact, because unfortunately it's kind of part of the new normal. And I'm acutely aware of how incredibly lucky I am to not be working on the front lines of this thing as a healthcare worker, but I'm also scared for them and for everyone who they interact with. It's a strange new world that we're all living in, and all we can do is our best. However, that's not the point of my chargeful message this week. My point this week is actually about life and it going on in different but still very important and very real ways. I'm talking about listening to stories of people having virtual weddings, or the woman who, on death's doorstep with coronavirus, was able to give birth to a healthy baby boy who was coronavirus free and start a new life for him, even in the midst of recovering from her own very, very serious illness. I'm talking about my adolescents who are making plans for virtual proms. One of them sent me a picture of her in her prom dress, and of course she looked absolutely gorgeous and adorable. And, you know, it was nice to hear about her getting together in a parking lot with her friends and having a dance party from more than 6 feet distance apart. And I'm also talking about me. If you were watching a month ago, you may have noticed that I was in a very different house than I am now. And the reason for that is because I moved. Even in the midst of this absolute craziness, my boyfriend and I, Curtis, who you saw a second ago, decided to move in together. The timing of it was based on the fact that we both thought that we would be safer sheltering together in a place that is nicer to do so than my old apartment was. And also because it was kind of time. We've been together for 4 years, and we're kind of excited to kind of take our commitment together to the next level and to see what that's like. We're having conversations about, you know, the daily details of living together, shared household chores and things of that nature, and also just conversations about how often we want to check in together, what we want to do together, cooking meals together, all of those things that we have not yet explored together throughout the course of our relationship, and we're now doing together now, and it's really exciting. It's really wonderful. And even in the midst of all of these frightening headlines and no real news of when all of this is going to stop, if ever, life goes on. I think of that line from Jurassic Park. I don't know if any of you are fans of that movie like I am, but life finds a way, right? We're all finding ways to keep living, to keep finding ways to be interested and engaged and grateful. You know, I talk to my friends who are just taking less things for granted. You know, yeah, we can't go on vacation to these places that we want to go to, and yeah, maybe our summer plans are going to change quite drastically, but we're together, you know, we're alive, we're taking care of each other the best that we can emotionally, and we're connecting in every way that we possibly can, which is one of the things that we do, and which is so core to one of our values here at WellSprings, is that power of connection. So just be aware of life in all of the ways in which it presents itself to you. This is my hope for me and for all of us. And now for some virtual announcements. This Sunday, as many of you know, is Mother's Day. And to celebrate the special day, we here at WellSprings are partnering with the Chester County Interfaith Action Community. It is an organization of local synagogues, churches, mosques, and other religious organizations gathering together to share our faith and, in this case, food with the individuals who really need it by donating to Chester County Food Bank. They have very appropriately titled the name of this drive as Flour, Flour, instead of flowers, sugar instead of candy, so that we can donate to the individuals who really need it. And if you would like to do so in the name of your mother or your parents together, you can put that in the little card when you sign up to make your donation. There will be a link in your Sunday newsletter, as well as on the website at WellSprings. And you can, again, make a donation in honor of your mom and spread joy to her wherever she may be. At WellSprings, the foundation of everything that we do is based in the power of connection, of reaching out with open hearts to other people who may be struggling or just are looking for another human connection like we are. Nowadays, thank goodness, we have the help of a lot of technology that can enable us to do that from afar. If you visit wellspringsuu.org, you'll find a number of helpful resources, including information on all of our current offerings. Youth Spirit has been doing a lot of fun things like movie nights and game nights. We're also organizing opportunities to meet with our reverends face to face, so to speak, through Zoom. We have our coffee hour every Sunday at 11 a.m. right after the service, and Youth Spirit meets every Sunday at 9 a.m. as well. If you're looking for ways to connect, it can be as simple as a phone call, FaceTime, text message, or any other way that you might want to reach out. We're going to give you a moment now to do that in real time. Thank you all for those warm greetings. I now invite you into our time of generosity, a chance to give back to WellSprings in some of the many ways that WellSprings has given to you. Now more than ever, if you find our community to be valuable and to provide you support during this time when we all so desperately need it, I ask you to please dig deep. And remember that our organization is still partnering with Chester County Futures to help them out during this time of need, in addition to keeping us going virtually. If you have a smartphone handy, you can simply dial 73256. Text the word WSprings, WSPRINGS. You can also click the link below on this video, which will take you to the website where you can set up either a one-time or an ongoing donation. However it is that you choose to give back, please know that WellSprings values your commitment more than words can say. Your offering will now be gratefully received. Just as we've taken the time to share the power of connection between us and of generosity beyond us, let us now take some time to reground into the deep and soulful energy that lies within us. We do this by doing what is most simple and elemental. We take a breath without rush or hurry. We breathe in and we breathe out. And we remember our connection with the ground holding us up, the simple breath in our lungs, our constant heartbeat keeping us going, and our love between us. As we enter our time of mindful silence together, we follow these words from Thich Nhat Hanh. If we want to enter heaven on earth, we need only one conscious step and one conscious breath. Let us experience peace and cultivate presence in this quiet time together. Wherever it is that we are, whatever it is that we are doing, however it is that we are feeling, let us always remember that peace and presence are as close to us as is our own breath. May this be so for you in this moment. May it be so for you in this day. May it be so for you in the days to come. And may it be so for all of us. If we were meeting in person, Now would be the time when I would dismiss the youth of our congregation to join Youth Spirit. However, since we're meeting online, they got together at 9 o'clock. So let's see if we have any shout-outs at Youth Spirit Yell.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi!
Are you having fun?
Yeah!
We came to say hello.
And I came here to show you some tricks. Thank you for coming. Ready to see some amazing tricks? I call this one the donkey bounce kick. And I call this one the Vegas bounce.
Woo!
Hi, WellSprings. These are 3 of the cutest types of chickens. This is Hazel, and she's a Barnevelder. She will lay chocolate brown eggs and sometimes reddish brown eggs. Thanks. This is Jumpy. He is a rooster, so he will not lay eggs, but if he was a hen, he would lay turquoise or green eggs, and he has little floofy cheeks. And he's
very
Jumpy.
fancy.
And he's an Americana.
Yep. And then who's this?
Come here. This is Plum, and she's a Brahma. She's floofy. She'll be a big, tall chicken. She has floofy feet. Hey.
And what kind of eggs will she
She
lay?
will lay brown, like tan eggs. And look at how floofy she is. Look at that floof.
There are no countries, there are no sides. I don't know why they draw these lines. I don't know what you see here, but there's nothing said.
everybody. So, in the 1990s, when I was a teenager, I confess, embarrassingly, I used to read a lot of like People magazine and Us Weekly. Some of you might still read it, no judgment. But I remember that one of my favorite things in reading those, celebrity magazines basically, was always that that section of the magazine that said stars, they're just like us, right? So you'd have Jay-Z eating an apple like a person, or Kate Hudson in a ponytail, the scandal, right? So it was, I think, especially good for me as a teenager. And I think this might be what's behind the appeal of things like that in general. That these people who felt on a pedestal somehow far away, they were doing everyday things. They shared some of the same experiences as I had at the time, an awkward teenager trying to figure out what was going on in this new adult world that I was slowly stepping my way into. I felt a little bit of that same feeling when I saw this the other day. This is an ad. It was in the Lowell Courier-Citizen newspaper in Lowell, Massachusetts, over 100 years ago, in October of 1918. The ad was placed, as you can see, by the Grace Universalist Church of Lowell, Massachusetts. And it says, with the desire to do everything possible to eradicate this epidemic from the city, Grace Universalist Church will remain closed another Sunday. Grace Universalist Church was a young congregation at the time, just over 20 years that they'd been gathered together. I saw this ad and I read a little bit of the story behind it, shared from a colleague of mine online, and I thought, Grace Universalist Church, they're just like us. I wonder if all of this felt as impossible to them as it does, I think, for me and for many of us now. I sit around sometimes in my house these days and I think about how impossible it feels to make a simple decision about whether or not to go outside, how impossible it feels some days to get work done. I'm sure for some of you how impossible it feels some days to think about another day of homeschooling or another Zoom call. How impossible it feels to think bigger. How impossible the election feels. Or just the thought of how are we going to find our way out of all this. It's comforting to me to know that people in the past and also people who gathered in communities like ours have found their way through impossible times. And it makes me want to know how, right? We can't do that exactly. What we are going through now is different in so many ways than what we have gone through before. And we are different. Our message series for May is called Love the Hell Out of This World, and it is designed to be a series where we dig a little deeper actually into where we came from. The spiritual tradition that WellSprings is a part of, Unitarian Universalism, came from the merger of these two distinct religious traditions in America, the Unitarians and the Universalists. Grace Universalist Church, obviously, was one of these historic Universalist churches in the United States. And looking back on who they were, it doesn't necessarily tell us who to be or what to do. But it does give us some clues for how people have survived and how these traditions have carried on to the place where we are able to be here today. Universalists were once Christians who came to some conclusions about what their faith taught them that made things very challenging for them. They were Christians who heard the Gospels and dug into their faith. And the more they read about this God who loved the world so much, the less they were able to work with this doctrine of their church that said some people are saved and some people are damned. Some people go to an eternal place for winners, and some people are eternally in the losing position, facing awful torture and torment in this place called hell. The early Universalists read that part of the Bible that said God is love. And they said God is love, this capital L kind of love. That's what makes God so powerful. That's what makes that love divine and holy. Its ability to hold every single person, to make room for all people when we cannot. When human beings do not have hearts big enough to do that. For each of us, that feels completely impossible. But maybe there's hope that there is some higher, greater power in this universe that can hold space and redeem me and you and everybody else, no matter who we are and no matter what we may have done. That is a saving belief for me. And it is essentially a faith in something that feels impossible. Today, when we think about universalism and when we talk about it in Unitarian Universalist congregations, we don't usually place as much emphasis on what happens after this life, on whether there is a literal hell or not. We talk a lot more about how hell is already here. People make hell for themselves and for each other all the time. We have enough to worry about without thinking about what happens after we die. And if we believe that everyone deserves to be saved by love, then we have to at least act in ways that make room for people to find that love in their own lives. Maybe we can't have that heart big enough for every person, but maybe by each one of us stretching and growing our hearts where we can, the sum of our parts is actually what creates that heart big enough for all people. I saw an example of this kind of universalist belief in action in a pretty hellish environment. Last month there was an article in the New York Times written by Nick Kristof. It took us into two of the worst hit hospitals in the Bronx. Hospitals that had been converted to take care only of COVID-19 patients. It was a very hard thing to read. Not nearly in any way as hard as it was, I'm sure, and still is for the people who are actually living it. But the stories of isolation, of immobility, of the inability to breathe or speak or connect, of unending death upon death, they rival any Dante's Inferno I've ever read, any description of what hell might be like. And in that impossible, awful, horrific situation, there were stories all throughout of healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, people in that hospital who found ways to honor the belovedness of the people around them, who found small ways to act in that same kind of faith that we all deserve, to be seen and honored. There was an email that was reprinted in the article It was from an attending doctor, one of the supervising doctors in the hospital, written to his young residents in training. And it asked them to go out of their way in a way that normally healthcare workers would not do, to give special comfort to patients who would not be getting it from their loved ones or from chaplains or religious leaders or clergy. He asked his doctors, it says, take a few moments if you can to talk with the patient about their families, to talk with them about their lives and their dreams. Ask them if there is a loved one you can call for them. And lastly, he said two very difficult things. Hold your patient's hand for a minute as they near death or pass. And ask your entire team to stop for 5 or 10 seconds. Bow your heads, state the patient's name, and ask for silence. He said this helps us retain our humanity in times of such crisis. And he said it gives our patients' families some solace that they, too, were treated with dignity. There's an author named John Pavlovitz who wrote an article where he talked about this distinction between fighting what we hate and saving what we love. Those doctors, those nurses, those healthcare workers are fighting such an intense battle these days against something that we don't know how to destroy. And saving what we love in those moments might feel so small in the face of that disappointment, right? Taking 5 or 10 seconds to have a makeshift bedside religious service. I'm sure that it is heartbreaking for those people who have just fought and lost the battle with that virus in that person's body. It feels so small. But as that doctor says, it matters so much. It matters so much to our common humanity, to recognizing our preciousness. Pavlovitz is quoting in his article, some of you might have already picked up on this if you're Star Wars fans. He's telling the story of one of the recent Star Wars movies, The Last Jedi. He talks about how there is a turning point in that film. There are these resistance fighters who are struggling against this giant scary force out there that is totally overwhelming them. And they've just lost a huge battle and nearly died themselves in the process. And that line comes as one of the characters, Finn, is pulling his comrade Rose out of the wreckage of her crashed and burned ship. And that's when she has that moment of realization. She says, we are going to win this war, not by fighting what we hate, but saving what we love. We're going to win this war not by fighting what we hate, but saving what we love. There is hell on this earth. It shows up in millions of ways that we abuse and hurt each other. In black men who are killed while jogging in Georgia for no reason. In children who are hurt and abused through no fault, possibly ever could be no fault of their own. It shows up in the big systems that leave some people to be more at risk due to this virus than others. And it shows up in ways that we can't point any finger at anyone, right? In the natural disasters and the mutations of tiny little viruses. It can feel overwhelming and impossible to know how to fight those things sometimes. And when we are motivated by trying to fight what we hate, trying to destroy and destroy and destroy, it's understandable, it's human. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but I know that the end result of that is destruction upon destruction. And there is power, real power, in saving what we love. And remembering how much is beloved and how worthy of saving it is. In those healthcare workers, remembering in those moments how precious and human that life was, and not just turning it into a virus vector to be stopped, but remembering that that person was beloved to someone. Universalism tells us that all of us are beloved to someone. When we act in our faith, we will find that we can feed that fire to save what we love forever. Because even in defeat, even when one person or patient or election or battle of any kind is lost, we will always look around and find more to save. We will always see more worthy of saving. And that's not a destructive force, that is a regenerative force. It grows the more we feed it, even with the smallest of things in an impossible and big situation. The Grace Universalist Church, way back in 1918, they had another article actually written about them in the paper that same month. It describes an emergency food kitchen that they set up. It says the women of the church were working with other local congregations. They were making stew with beef and vegetables and lamb and potatoes. And they were distributing it to families that were unable to do their own cooking because of the influenza. A small thing, but not that small. An act of faith, much like the one that we are doing this weekend. That we are partnering at the same time, right now, right, with our other local spiritual communities, with our Interfaith Council here in Chester County. Not cooking stew in kitchens this time, but holding a virtual food drive, doing the things we do now to care for each other, right? PayPaling $20 for a box of food, or some cans of peaches, boxes of milk that will be distributed by the Chester County Food Bank this week in our name and so many others in honor of Mother's Day. Our local Interfaith Council worked with members of our own Heartworks team to make a beautiful video about each of our local religions and spiritual communities' teachings on hunger. It's in the description below. You can watch it after our service today. In times like these ones, just like we did in 1918, we Universalists, we live our faith. We save what we love. Nothing we love is too small for saving or too insignificant. When we save what we love, we mean that we will be saving all of our neighbors, all that there is around us that is beloved, as best we can in any given moment. I know that for me, one of the pieces of grace in these last few weeks has been how small my focus has gotten, right? There's just less in front of me, literally, every day. And so I am noticing a lot more things that I love. I'm noticing how tender my my sense of appreciation is for the music that I can just put on and let fill my apartment every single day. I'm noticing the way that this time of year cardinals land on the rooftops and sing, and I am finally learning how their song is different from the other bird's song because I'm actually paying attention to it. I'm noticing how impossibly bright red cardinals are. How I can't believe that color exists in nature. I'm noticing my love for the wind that is blowing through the trees, the comfort that I get from that rustling sound. I'm noticing the love I feel when I get a note from a friend or hear just the sound of their voice on a phone call. There is so much worthy of saving. Maybe some of you have noticed this too. Maybe you are finding things that you love in fresh, new ways these days. You can type them in the chat if you want. You can share them with us. You can speak them out loud as you're watching with us, if you're watching on Sunday morning. What are the things you love these days? The things that you love most in this time and in this moment. I don't believe that our attention to these things is a way of being Pollyannas or of shutting out, ignoring the hurt and the hell that is here in this world. Our attention to these things that we love, it's a way of feeding ourselves, of sustaining that small spark of the capital L love of the divine that lives inside each of us. And when we feed those small things that we love, we are energizing and feeding ourselves for whatever fight might still be ahead of us. And we are reminding ourselves always of all of the things out there that we still have the power to save. Amen. And may you live in blessing. I invite you to take a moment to close your eyes if you're comfortable, relax your shoulders, your jaw, maybe bow your head and join me in the spirit of prayer. God of our hearts, who speaks to each of us in our own heart's language, who shows us the beauty of this earth in the way that only we can recognize it. May we look around and feel less alone today. Not just here and now in this moment, but less alone remembering all who've come before us. Remembering the ones who raised us, the mothers, the fathers, the parents and step-parents, the grandparents, the ancestors whose names we don't even know, but all of the ones who showed us in some way what it meant to love and feed and care for someone beyond ourselves. May we find ways today and in the days to come, as things feel challenging and impossible, to act in ways that honor the love they showed to us. To remember that they wanted us here, and they wanted us to pass that love on. For these prayers I've spoken, and for the prayers that each of the people watching this morning carries on their hearts, we say amen. Two, three.
There was a Cape Town man, used to plow and sing. He loved his mule, and his mule loved him. When the day got long, like it does about now, hear him singing to his muley cow, like this. Come on, you sweet old girl, I bet the whole damn world we're gonna make it yet to the end of the road. Singing hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind no more. It's a mean old world, heavy in need. That big machine keeps on picking up speed. They were supping on tears, supping on wine. We all get to heaven in our own sweet time. So come on, you Asheville boys, turn up your old time noise. Kick till the dust comes up from the cracks in the floor. Singing hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind no more. So come on, you ragtime kings. Come on, you all and sing. Pick up that dusty old horn and give it a blow. Singing hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind no more. No more.
That was a new song from Andy, and I loved it. It goes on a list of things I love. So the light in Bev and Curtis's new home may go out, but the source that sparked it stays with each of us. And together we say, as we release this flame from its faithful service today, we allow the spark in each of us to burn on, to warm our compassion, to fire our delight, and to light our paths today, tomorrow, and always. I miss seeing you, friends, but I'm glad that you joined us this morning, and I hope I'll see some of you at our coffee hour at 11 o'clock on Zoom. Be well.